How do you build a successful sales engine to grow your company? An effective sales engine is an absolute must for any company that wants to grow, but it can be daunting to think about all the things that you need to happen. That's why I have someone who has done this over and over again with me today to share the process and the key elements you must have to be successful. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing, where we believe you must remove your revenue roadblocks to accelerate growth, and marketing shouldn't be difficult. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I am super excited to have Tim McNeil from OSR Manage and Sales Maturity with me today. Tim, welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's great to be on.
Yes, I can't wait to dig into this, man. Sales is something that a lot of us struggle with, so hopefully we can help guide people down the right path today.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions. Help us get to know you. You ready to rock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
So I've got two young kids. I've got an almost 8 and almost 6-year-old. So that is all consuming. So that I would say that's how I like to spend my time.
Yes, I know what you mean, man. What's your hidden talent?
I'd say for the people that know me, I'm a mean contractor. I basically rebuilt a house, our first house in Connecticut, and I put a fully functional bar / family room and workout room in our basement at our second house.
Dude, that's a nice hidden talent to have. So you're great at sales, but you can build you can physically build stuff as well, right?
I can.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I had my first position out of college was at Northwestern Mutual, and I had a mentor there. First off, I hated it, but whatever. Great people at the office I was at. It just insurance was not for me. Yeah. One of my mentors very early on told me something that I never forgot. And I tell people all the time: if you're a salesperson and you get a no, that's not a negative. You're one no closer to having that yes. Right? Yeah. Or you're one answer closer to having that yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're doing your job if you're getting no's.
Yes. Yeah. Which can be hard for people to relate to sometimes, but it's a factual statement.
Yes, it is. What's one thing about you that surprises people other than you being a great contractor?
I mean, I've got a pretty easygoing. I've got a maybe not easygoing personality is the right thing, but I tend to be friends with everybody, right? Like I would like to think I find the best in people. I joke around sometimes too much, but I would say that's probably it.
What does success mean to you?
Creating a life for my kids that was better than what I had. And that is, I feel like I've had a fortunate life and didn't grow up with millions or anything like that. But to me, passing down my success and having my kids have a better opportunity than I had, and whatever that might be for them moving forward, that would be success to me.
That's a great answer, man. Nobody's ever answered in that way. So
okay.
Kudos to you, man. You're super unique there. Where's your happy place?
On Lake George, New York. It's one of the greatest places in the world.
Where is that in New York? Is that in upstate New York or where?
It is upstate New York. It's for anybody listening that knows the geography of Albany. Of New York. It's about 60 miles north of Albany. It's a lake that's about 36 miles long, but it is right in the Adirondacks, and honestly, one of the most beautiful places you've ever seen. And I'm lucky enough to have it 20 minutes from my house.
Oh, damn. I was going to say 36 miles. I mean, it's pretty big.
It's a big lake.
Yeah, it's a good sized lake.
Yeah. It's a great place.
I love it. What do you like to do at Lake George?
I've got a boat, so we've spent a lot of time. My wife and I, kids are young enough where we don't really go away for vacations right now because they're still, you know,
Yeah.
7 and 5. So I look at, we've got a dock there. I look at that as being our vacation. So like we spend a lot of time on the water during the summer.
See, what water ski or wakeboard?
I do both. It's kind of Lake George specifically is hard to water ski on because it's so busy,
Okay.
but we do when we can. It's
Yeah.
kind of few and far between, but when it's smooth, you can take a rip out there pretty easy.
Yeah, or you can pull your kids on a tube. And,
Yes.
yeah.
It's more that, right? It's
Yeah.
more that. Yeah.
What qualities do you value in the people you spend time with?
I'm kind of a no BS person, so I just like it when people are straight with me. Like I think my wife and I both and Rob Rogers, my business partner, we tend to circle ourselves with people who are just they're honest. They're not trying to get one over on you. They're just good people, right? Salt of the earth. Like that's what I would say. Those are the kind of people that we tend to gravitate towards.
So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with OSR Manage and sales maturity.
Yeah. So OSR is really our main. That's our I would say our first company, right? Our main company. So what we do there is we are a fractional sales manager for the MSP channel. We call it Sales Manager as a Service, and we've got a full-time recruiter on. Essentially, what we do is when we start working with an MSP, whether they have a salesperson existing or they want to hire a salesperson, we can work with them in either way. We have a full-time recruiter on staff, a full-time trainer on staff. We have 5 managers that manage salespeople all over North America. We always have 1 or 2 clients in Canada, and predominantly in the US.
Yeah.
And we manage those people. We manage those salespeople to best practice, right? So we've been in the channel a long time, and even prior to being in the channel, Rob and I both worked at an MSP in Hartford, Connecticut. Personally, I was on the sales side for 4.5 years, and he was actually my sales manager. So when we're managing salespeople, the system that we manage to is very similar in some aspects to what Rob did, how he managed me back in the day, and daily huddles, weekly one-on-ones, weekly sales training, weekly calls with the client, just like if they had a sales manager on staff. And then where sales maturity comes into play is just because we have that experience within the MSP community, we've got literally hundreds of documents, and I'm talking hundreds on every aspect of the sales cycle and the sales process. Where sales maturity comes into play, it's set up in 2 different forms. We call it boss mode and adventure mode. So boss mode is really more geared for those MSPs that they may be looking to be acquired in the next 2 to 5 years. And we've got a really aggressive growth track to make sure that their sales maturity is in line with their operational maturity level. So it's an 84 question assessment where an MSP comes in and we can actually show them where they are in their sales maturity growth, what they should be working on next, all with the goal of, okay, you want to exit in 2 to 5 years. Here's what we need to do to square up your sales department, because we've been told by many experts within the industry that you can expect 2 to 3 times more X on exit if you have a sustainable sales process and sales team. And then where adventure mode comes into play is for the MSP that is looking to break through a ceiling, right? Whether it's at 500,000, 1.5 or 2.5 ceiling, that's more of an AI tool. So where that comes into play is we are able to put all of our documents into the adventure mode, and whether you're looking to create a script, campaign, whatever it might be, help on how to run an on-site meeting or just prospect in general, our AI bots will be able to create all of that for you. It's privatized AI, so it's all of our information, pulling from over 200 documents to get the answers and help that MSPs need in any stage of the sales process.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk sales, man. So you gotta recruit and hire people first and foremost. So what are the most important elements to be successful there that you guys have found?
Biggest thing that we see, and this is so the recruiting side of what we do is kind of my baby, because prior to me being in the MSP world, I was a recruiter for 3.5, almost 4 years. The biggest thing if you're an MSP and you're looking to hire a salesperson, whether it's your first or your 10th, you need to hire to your core values. More and more, especially post-COVID, everybody knows what the hiring climate is out there right now, right? Yeah. The most successful clients that we have, they hire not only their salespeople, but everybody around their core values. In fact, we've got multiple clients when we're working with them, when we're trying to find a salesperson for them, part of their initial on-site interview is less about, what's your background and this and that. And it's more about almost giving them a presentation about who they are, who that MSP is, what their core values are, what it means to them, and how it's the only way that person can be successful in their company is if there's a match there.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most important thing, I would say. I mean, yes, you should be looking for business to business experience. Ideally, you want somebody who's had no more than 2 jobs in 5 years. Those things are still important. Don't get me wrong, but it's more about the core values.
When you guys are advertising for salespeople, is there anything that you're doing special in the ads themselves to make sure you're attracting people that have those core values?
So there's a lot of kind of sales and recruiting are somewhat similar. I liken it to fishing, right? You've got to use different lures to find people.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for a salesperson, I'll use Indeed as an example.
Yeah.
You can just post a job posting, and you can have people reactively apply to it. And sometimes the results are good, sometimes they're not. What we recommend doing is having that ad live, and then also doing a proactive search and inviting people. So once you can find through the proactive search, there's a lot of different filters. It runs somewhat similar to like a LinkedIn. If anybody has a sales navigator, you can put in a number of different filters and try and find, at least start out with a pool of people that hit parameters of what you're looking for, right? And then from there is a fair amount of research that goes into it, but you start inviting people to the position, to apply to the position. And if you look at our last 10 hires, or out of any given 10 hires, probably 7 of them come from the proactive search, where we're actively fishing for people. And it's that is proven to have some really nice results, right? Longevity tends to be a little bit longer, a little more invested in the position right out of the gate. Generally, you're not finding people who are as much of job hoppers, which can be hard in today's times, but it has been, that's critical, we feel, in the whole recruiting process. Also doing profiles.
I want to make sure I heard you right, because this is something easy for people to overlook. Out of the last 10 hires you guys have made, 7 of them have come from your proactive outreach efforts.
Yeah.
So, super important as far as I'm concerned, because too many of us, gosh, there's so many parallels here to marketing as well,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Where, it's hey, getting your marketing out there and attracting inbound leads is great, but you also have to have some proactive outbound efforts
You do.
as well. And on the hiring side, what you guys are finding is the vast majority of the candidates are actually coming from outbound. So
Mhm.
if you're just putting an ad out there, hoping that everybody's going to come to you, you're missing out on a hell of a lot of candidates.
You are. You are. Yeah, you really are. I mean, there's a whole nother world when you start going proactive, and the ability that you have to be able to reach a different audience, and in a generally a more productive audience. So
Yeah.
it's highly recommended. And when we started doing that, we look, I'll be honest with you, we didn't used to have to do that. Like, we did it out of necessity once COVID hit, because everything
Yeah.
went so sideways. But it ended up being one of the better, not mistakes, but one of the better things we backed into that has afforded us to find some really, really good salespeople out there.
I think the other thing that's important to consider here too is you're in your outreach efforts, most of those people they're fully employed at this point,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but at the same time, we also know that, and I don't know what the percentages are, you may know this better than I do, but um, it's fairly high. I mean, there's a lot of people that are not happy in their existing jobs.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when you're outreaching with an opportunity that's a good fit, there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to at least want to investigate that
Yeah.
and see what's going on. I think the other thing too that is important to consider here, you're talking about hiring for core values really first.
Mhm.
The skills are important, but either you got the values or you don't. Like, you're that type of person, so you can't you hire somebody that doesn't share your core values, you're not going to fix it later. So
It's just not going to work.
yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also think, and this is where we get another parallel to marketing too, is your marketing message attracts the people you intend to work with, and it repels the people that you don't. Your core values act similarly on the hiring side. If you're leading with your core values and talking about those in your ads, in your
Mhm.
initial conversations, your initial communications,
Yeah.
you are naturally going to repel those people that don't share those same core values.
Yep.
Which means you're not going to waste your time with a bunch of people that are not a good fit from a core value standpoint, which I think is super, super important. But damn, one of the biggest takeaways I am taking away from what you just shared is proactive outreach is incredibly important.
Extremely.
My guess is a lot of people are not doing that.
Probably not. And it's not a ding on them. It's just
No.
it's a function of time, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we've been able to create our niche. In one of the reasons we've been able to create our niche in the MSP community is we have somebody that has the time, and that's a precious commodity. It just is.
Well, to me, Tim, it's not only do you have somebody that has the time, they have the skill set and the expertise to do it effectively.
Yeah.
How many, I don't know about you. Well, you're different than I am because you were a recruiter for a while,
I
but
was.
most business owners do not have experience
No,
recruiting. It is not our skill set.
it's
So
not your thing.
having somebody in-house on your team that can fill that role for your clients, I think is, super, super
Right.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit, Tim. So
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about recruiting, hiring. Once we find those people, how do we get those people started off on the right foot? And I think this is where, gosh, not only just with salespeople, but just with new team members
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
general,
Yep.
this is where I think a lot of us go down the wrong path, where we just don't have the processes, the systems in place to get people started. So
Yeah.
help us out here.
So I'll back up just real quick. So when
Yeah.
Rob and I started OSR, initially we were a lead generation company for the first 5 years. We've been around for almost 10 years now, right? So for the first 5 years, we were a lead gen company. And one of the things that we found time and time again when we were lead gen was the MSP owner that would call us up and they would say, you know what, we've tried and failed with 2, 3, 4, 5 salespeople, and they all suck. They're all terrible. They don't know what they're doing. It's that, the other thing. And I'm just going to write you a check. You're going to make calls for me and everything's going to be great. That is surface level. That sounds great, but that's not the reality, right? What we started finding over time was the mistakes that MSP owners generally make, and this isn't always true, but generally it's true. When they hire a tech or an engineer, they probably have a ramp up period that could be as much as 90 days with specific training on everything that they use, whether it's a PSA, all the vendors that they use in their stack, all of that, right?
Yeah.
A tech or an engineer, they come in and they have a roadmap. But yet when it comes to a salesperson, often there's no training. Sometimes there's no leads. Often there's not even a CRM. It could be like a Autotask or a ConnectWise. You can live through with one of those. And I would say one of the biggest things people need is that process for a salesperson. And that includes both upfront training, specifically on prospecting. This is one of the drums that I've beaten for a long time. It doesn't matter how much you pay a salesperson. It doesn't matter how good their proven closing experience is. If they can't open a door, they are worthless to you.
Yeah.
They just are, right? So for that reason, we tend to focus a lot on the prospecting, how to create prospects or first-time appointments out of the gate, and then start the ongoing of, okay, this is what an MSP sales cycle looks like in all its different stages. And we coach and train them through it on an ongoing basis. It can take time, and everybody gets it at their own rate. What I would say for the MSP owners out there looking to hire a salesperson, give it time. The reality is it's going to take 6 to 9 months for that person to start closing their first deals. You hope that they close 3 to 4 deals in the first year. But what you're doing in that first year is creating something where the person understands your company, understands the industry. They have a pipeline. They've taken over more and more aspects of the sales process with the ultimate goal of hopefully you want that person to be really just kind of running it almost from beginning to end from years 2 on with the sales engineer that in a supporting role for any technical conversations that come up. So that was really long.
No, not at all, man. I want to pull some things out here because there was some really good stuff in there. We've got to have process. Super important. We have to think long term. This is another parallel with marketing, right? So many of us get in thinking short term. Oh my gosh, like I just hired this salesperson, or I just started marketing, and they haven't closed a deal, or I'm not generating leads in the first 30 to 60 days. It's like, this isn't how this works, right? You have to do this consistently. So you've got to be committed, minimum 6 to 9 months for them to start getting up to speed and rolling. I also think, and we're going to go down this path because you touched on this, where you mentioned, gosh, they come in and like there's no leads, and I know that people, there seem to be a few different camps here, right? Like you hire a salesperson and they're a freaking hunter, and they're going out. They gotta find their own, prey and take it down. And then there's like this mix too, where it's like, hey, I expect you to hunt, but we're also actively marketing and generating leads for you. In your experience, do you think that one of those is more successful than the other?
So I think we may have even prior conversations we may have talked about this.
Yeah.
One of the most telling stats that Rob and I have come across was Rob, again, business partner. He was able to, he had a speaking engagement last year at IT Nation. And one of the things that he did in preparation for this breakout session was he evaluated all of the calls from the salespeople that we managed from January 21 through October 22. It was about 1 million calls. And what we found was for a sales rep that just went to an MSP and they didn't really have any marketing support or cadences or campaigns going out. They were just doing cold calls and creating their centers of influence, maybe doing some chamber events, associations, etc. It would take 337 calls to get one appointment. For our MSPs that had squared away marketing campaigns, cadences, mailers being sent out, sales and marketing being on the same page, and leads were being generated by marketing, or with a marketing and sales kind of tag team.
Yeah.
It went from 337 calls to one appointment down to 151 calls to one appointment. So what I would say is, if you're an MSP and you're about to hire a salesperson, everything I just said about recruiting and everything I just said about training, you really shouldn't hire that salesperson until you have a squared away marketing campaign or cadences built out and running.
Yeah.
It's your best chance for success. And that can be a struggle for some MSP owners or just MSPs, because that means more money. That means longer ROI. However, once you get to the other side, what you'll find is the cost per appointment drops significantly.
Yeah.
And even though you're spending more up front, you get it so much more on the back end.
Yeah. You're generating twice as many appointments.
Yeah.
With marketing piggybacking off of your sales efforts. I also think and frankly, I don't think this is much different in any other space outside of the MSP space either.
I'm sure.
I also think there is a higher likelihood you are going to retain your salespeople for a longer period of time, because look, most of us know that hunting day in, day out is freaking
brutal.
hard. Okay. It takes a special kind of person to be able to go in and do that day in, day out. And it's just hard. And so if you can help supplement some of that with leads that you're feeding your salespeople, I just think they're going to be much happier long term, and they're going to feel much more supported by the organization. The other thing where I think marketing is going to help, and thank you, I kind of threw you a softball there, intentionally.
I figured.
Yeah, I threw you a softball there intentionally. But the other thing where I think marketing also plays a key role from a sales standpoint is with messaging.
Yeah.
The messaging is so important on the front end with marketing, but it's also important as you transition leads from marketing to sales. Part of that training and onboarding process with sales is also like, hey, this is our message to the market. This is how we are different. This is our unique selling proposition, because that message needs to be the same. Otherwise, when leads come in through marketing, if they go to sales and it's a different message, people get confused, right? They're like, whoa, wait a minute.
What's going on?
This is different. Yeah. And that's not a good thing either. So I love it. And thank you for sharing that stat. Nobody has ever shared any stat like that with me.
We are about to refresh that and go through, so we're going to do it again. And we're going to do it again in time for, sorry, I'm just looking at the date.
No, it's all good.
In about 45 days, we'll have updated stats on.
Okay, cool. I love it. You're going to have to keep me posted.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about recruiting, hiring. Once we brought them on board, some of the things we need to do to help them be successful long term. as they're starting to take action, metrics, so important. God, again, so important on the marketing side, super important on the sales side. What metrics do you guys find to be the most important ones to track?
So we subscribe to what we call a sales activity process or system. It's very much like a utilization rate for the techs and the engineers at an MSP, right? You want that tech or engineer, there probably stands to reason you probably want them being billed for 32 to 34 hours a week. We've translated a similar system to a salesperson.
Okay.
And we believe in really a multi-pronged approach, right? So calling is always going to be the foundation of what we recommend, but that's not the end all be all, right? I think when people hear that you should lead with calling, they automatically think you've got a cold caller and that's all they do. And that's not really the case. It should be the foundation of what they do. You're going to be able to touch more people through calling than you can any other way. But on top of that, you should really have, we recommend using Dripify through LinkedIn. So you're going to need a Sales Navigator license and a Dripify campaign going. That will increase your reach and frequency within your target market in the market that you're in. So that's another way to just the brand awareness, the salesperson awareness on top of the calling. Also, any emails, yes. You got to send emails, but also how many networking events is this person going to? Well, we call them BLBs, breakfast, lunch, and beer. So for any salesperson that's in your territory and going to a brick and mortar, or just within your radius, they should be having no less than 2 BLBs a week with circles of influence, or people that they've met at networking events. So it's a lot of words to say that we've got a point system around calling, LinkedIn activity, sending emails, going to networking events, doing individual one-on-ones or that center of influence. And that's what we find to be the most successful way to create a well-rounded salesperson, because kind of like what we talked about before, or kind of alluded to before, doing one of any of those things probably won't make you successful. But if you do them all in conjunction, that's what makes a successful, well-rounded rep.
So you guys are tracking the activity.
Mm-hmm.
You have recommended numbers for each of those activities,
mm-hmm.
and then they're being scored weekly,
daily, weekly, and monthly.
Okay.
Daily, weekly, and monthly.
So that's that for the owner, or you guys as the fractional sales manager, that gives you a scorecard to look at, like, hey, are they doing what they need to do? If they're not, hey, this is time for us to get in and start coaching on, hey, we got to get these up. But the other thing that I'm also wondering is, it seems like to me these activities are leading indicators that are going to lead to leads being generated. And as you guys continue to track these things, do you get to a place with any given client where you can go, hey, we now have enough data where we know that if you hit these scores, you will generate X amount of leads?
Yep. Yeah, we do. That takes time, right? Every client's different, but we've got, it's all about longevity. It goes back to what we were saying before. You've got to be patient, or whether it's a marketing, whether you're working with a marketing company or a company like us, you've got to be patient. It takes time to create that data, but once you have it, man, it's hard to replace that, because not many people get there. And when they do, you got to take advantage of it. And I think we've been pretty fortunate with some of the people that we've been able to work with, that we've worked with them long enough where we kind of you kind of tweak levers after a while. You're not in rebuild mode, or you're not in build mode as much as you are. Okay, what do we need to tweak here, tweak there to get more appointments to close more business?
Yeah.
So it's still the same end goal, but it's just a different strategy to get there because you've done the grunt work, and now the fruits of your labor they're right in front of you.
Yeah. Well, and it's how long does it take to get enough data?
So depends on how on I'll back up just real quick. So when it
Yeah.
comes to the marketing side, we don't usually run the data on the marketing side, right? So
Right.
there's a
Yeah.
portion of it that we hope that the MSP that we're working with, or just an MSP out there,
Yeah.
you should be keeping track of that. You should know what's happening there. Click-through rates and
Yeah.
any of that stuff. You should know that. Where a salesperson comes into the fold is, the more aggressive they are in the prospecting phase, the more data you can get. How many calls does it, or what's their percentage to get past a gatekeeper? What's their decision maker to appointment ratio, right? These are all things that as a rep gets more seasoned, those percentages are going to be higher and better. So kind of a long-winded answer again, so apologize about that, but it probably does take a solid 6 to 9 months before you really start seeing the baseline created, because there's very much there's a bit of a shotgun effect in the beginning with any salesperson, because
Right.
you've really got to spray and pray to a certain extent, and then and I hate using gut analogies, but it is kind of relevant. And then it's kind of a rifle effect, right? So
Yeah.
you've talked to decision makers who work with an MSP, when that contract ends, the industry, the size, the radius, and eventually that salesperson goes from more of a straight cold calling / cold prospecting to not only having the marketing campaigns going, but they've had conversations. They know when contracts are coming to an end.
Yeah.
They have a warm 250 set up, and they're able to just kind of go from what used to be almost a whole 100% cold calling is now like really 80% follow-ups and 20% cold calling or cold outreach, because they have that list seasoned.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you talk about calling, it's not all cold calls.
It's
It's
not
it's
all. No.
really it's working
Oh yeah.
the database that they've
Yes.
slowly built up over time and just staying in front of those people
Yep.
consistently.
7 to 12 times. You have to call somebody 7 to 12 times before they know you exist.
Yeah. Yeah. It or touch them in some way,
Oh,
shape, or form, right?
touch points. I should say
Yeah.
touch points is really the right phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's have you found is it taking more touch points now than it used to?
Yeah. Yep. No doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. That's where, quite frankly, that is a huge reason behind why Rob and I shut down the lead generation side of what we did, because it was just when we first started in 2013, we could legitimately make 100 to 150 calls, talk to 10 decision makers, and get one appointment. And we were just calling only.
Yeah.
Then it went to 200, and then 250. And then you throw into New York City, and it could be 400 calls in between appointments.
Yeah.
And you've got callers who hate life because all they're doing is calling and getting hung up on them.
Yeah.
You've got frustrated clients. So the game has changed. You just have to be smarter about it, right? And that's where marketing to us is so critical. When you've got a salesperson on staff, like if you don't have a marketing presence, you are doing your salesperson a disservice that they probably, I mean, look, some of them will be able to overcome it. Not most.
Marketing gives you additional touch points in the beginning.
Gives you a
Right?
reason. Gives you a reason. Yeah.
So it's I love it. Any last minute thoughts you want to leave us with today?
Man, I think probably honestly, what I reiterate what I just said. Like if you're an MSP and you're looking for a salesperson, you've got to have a system, but most importantly, you can't let that person just show up without leads, without marketing. There's got to be some campaign, some cadence that's going out that will help launch a salesperson that much faster. And it's necessary to be successful mid and long term. It's just the reality.
Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, best place to check us out is on our website, osrmanage.com. We're also on LinkedIn. You can either look up Sales Maturity or OSR Manage on LinkedIn. We tend to post on a pretty regular basis, and those are usually the two best places.
Awesome. If you are a managed service provider in the IT cyberspace, reach out to Tim and the team at OSR Manage. I've had the pleasure of connecting with him multiple times now, and they know what the hell they're doing. So reach out, osrmanage.com. We'll make sure that goes in the show notes. Tim, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you. Those of you that are watching, listening, I appreciate you as well. We're talking a lot about sales. Tim mentioned the importance of having a sales process, which that is one of the only things that I dig into a little bit, surface level, not as deep as you do, in our process. But sales process is one of the 9 revenue roadblocks that is in people's way. If you want to know which of the 9 revenue roadblocks are slowing down your growth, you can do that over at revenueroadblockscorecard.com. You can also always connect with us over at Rialto marketing.com. Book a free consult. I would be happy to talk to you. Thank you again. Till next time.
Thank you so much.